Let's get to Ukraine, because there's also a lot going on there right now. Let's put this up there on the screen. We had this last night, with as Russia completed its full retreat from the city of Kherson, which we'll all remember they annexed not that long ago. And in a genuinely humiliating act, Zelensky has visited Kherson only days after the Russian retreat, putting himself squarely in the middle of the city center and vowing to reclaim all of Ukraine's. Quote, "We are step by step coming to all of our country. I am happy that we are here in Kherson," literally just days after Ukrainians marched into the city. Let's go ahead and put this video that we cut of Ukrainian forces marching back into the city. You can see, look at the amount of Ukrainian flags, of people that are swarming the streets, of people which are happy. This, by the way, is what Russia wants you to believe is Russia. This is how you're being greeted, supposedly, in a, quote, foreign country. I can't think of anything more than a massive repudiation to Kremlin claims about how all of these places even want to be Russian and all of that, than the fact that they were greeted as heroes and liberators in what is supposedly foreign territory that always wanted to be there. So, I mean, there is no better FU than literally marching back into territory that you claim is officially yours. Also, I want us to zoom out a little bit. This is part of why the strategic ambiguity on the Russian part is maddening and so difficult and dangerous. According to them, this is sovereign Russian Federation territory. Well, you just had the president of a foreign country, supposedly, according to your law, march into that. And you're not really doing anything about it. So then how are we supposed to know when you're bluffing and when you're not? This is what causes a tremendous amount of uncertainty and is pushing things possibly in a more favorable direction towards negotiation, which is where things are kind of looking at right now. But I think the top line takeaway, Krystal, which is that the Ukrainians really had them up until today. I've talked here before. November 16th is generally regarded as the universal turning point towards the muddy season, towards the cold. It just becomes far too cold in order to wage any sort of full-scale warfare. The Russians, despite conscriptions and despite all of the materiel they're trying to amass, they don't seem to have the capacity right now to mount a real offensive in the 2023 fighting season. So for them to end the note on a withdrawal like this, humiliating, possibly leading us in a more favorable direction. You have anything you want to add on Kherson before we get to negotiation?
Just a couple quick things. Yeah. First of all, we did have a Kremlin comment on Zelensky's trip to Kherson. They say, quote, "We will leave this without comment. You know that this is territory of the Russian Federation."
Right.
Okay. And I do think it underscores, again, what a foolish move they made, because there was this sort of sense that Crimea was different, that this was a real red line. But then when you go and, you know, do these pretend referendums and pretend like Kherson is also part of Russia, you really make it a lot less clear where your actual red lines are, which I think is bad for Russia. I also do think it is a dangerous situation. And the thought is, you know, I was trying to gauge, which is an impossible thing to do, but I was trying to gauge a little bit of how the Russian domestic population was sort of taking in this retreat and this humiliating loss ultimately. And, you know, you do have some of the pro-war, like, you know, ultra, like to the right of Putin, like militarists who are very upset about this once again. And I think the idea for Russia strategically is basically like they didn't feel like they had the ability to hold Kherson for the winter. So they decided to fall back, dig in their trench lines, and try to be able to hold on to a more defensible position going into the cold months.
Yeah, Dugin, Alexander Dugin, whose daughter was assassinated, possibly by Ukrainian forces, actually criticized Putin directly, basically saying, he said, what if the fate of the king of the reigns, autocracy has a downside, completeness of power in the case of success, and completeness of responsibility for failure. You thought otherwise. Basically issuing a threat kind of from the Russian ultra-nationalists against Putin. Who knows whether it's controlled opposition or not, but look, at this point, you know, Richard Hanania said this, and I think this is, if you think about the side-by-side of Zelensky marching into Kherson and Putin cowering in like COVID madness, impossible illness, sending his foreign minister to the G20 because he doesn't really have the balls to look actual foreign leaders in the face, it's humiliating. I mean, how else can you describe it? To have this like aging autocrat in Russia having launched now this failed war, being humiliated. I'm not saying it isn't still dangerous, but you know, he's betting the house, the fate of his regime, really. On the future of this, because let's think about this. If he retreated fully and capitulated, his grasp on power, his entire sale to the Russian public, they'd be like, well, what was the point of all of this. You know, Russia is not democratic, but it's a lot more democratic than it was, you know, a while back. And that doesn't mean that they can't have major social strife too. So I predict big problems on the horizon for the Russians. And look, it's literally all of their fault. So I don't have particular sympathy.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now. And Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us. And if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.